Mark, would you like to pray? Okay. Absolve me, Abuna. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. We thank you, Lord, for this wonderful gathering. And we ask you, Lord, to guide our hearts and our minds and our understandings so we may be able to glorify your name in all that we do. We ask, Lord, to bless everyone here that's in this meeting and those who are not with us. Help us always, Lord, to live our lives as true and honest and faithful Christians. Through the intercessions of the Holy Theotokos St. Mary, St. Mark, and all the saints, we ask the Lord to make us worthy, pray thankfully, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as 'tis in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. In Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God. Amen.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the Agape Project's second installment on safety against sexual abuse. Thank you for joining us this evening. So my name is Maggie Ibrahim, and I am the Director of Education for our group. With us tonight, we have our loving and supportive fathers, Abuna Samuel Hanna and Abuna Mark Shirabim, as well as the rest of our regional fathers. And we have our passionate speaker and incredible youth advocate, Angelina Awad. We also have several members of our team with us, composed of licensed clinicians, social workers, attorneys, physicians, researchers, licensed educators, and clergy. The material presented this evening and at every one of our events is carefully curated and created by our mental health professionals and reviewed by our entire multidisciplinary team. Here at the Agape Project, we envision a Christ-centered Coptic Orthodox Church community that empowers every congregant to advocate for equality and combat abuse in all its forms. We believe that the church must be an open, transparent, and safe environment that's filled with love, support, and trust between the clergy, the servants, and the laity. If you want to learn more about our vision, our values, and our team members, visit our website at www.agapeproject.org, and there you'll also find links to our Instagram and Facebook, and you'll be able to stay up to date on all of our events. So we welcome you all to our discussion tonight about keeping yourself and others safe from sexual abuse, geared specifically towards college students and graduates. There will be a Q&A after the lecture. We emailed all of you a question submission form, and we will address questions after our talk. If you were here last week, you know how it goes. Please note that even though we're going to try to go through every question, we're going to focus on questions that are relevant to tonight's subject matter. And if we do not get to your question, that means it will be addressed in a subsequent meeting. All right, thank you. Angelina.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maggie. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Agape Project's second installment in our series on safety against sexual abuse. As Maggie introduced so kindly, my name is Angelina Awad, and I am beyond blessed to be joined by a talented team of loving abunas, incredible mental health professionals, as well as other extremely qualified allied professionals, as Maggie reviewed before. So something that I've realized over the past several months of the monster year that we've been having is that we are so interconnected with one another, and we may not realize it, but our actions have the potential to impact another person's life in such a way that's hard for us to completely understand. And with the recent allegations and some confirmed reports of sexual assault in our community, it's hard not to think about our individual places in the situation. Some questions that I've found myself asking are things like, what am I supposed to do here? And what can I do? What unites us here today is our connection as Coptic Christians. And I can say with certainty that if you're here tonight, you've come here out of a sense of compassion and care for your community. And I thank you for that. Tonight, we'll be focusing on identifying and defining the many forms that sexual harassment and assault can take. College specifically can be a really interesting time. It's a time for us to venture out on our own, to find the passion that fuels our future careers, and it's a chance for us to create lifelong relationships. There's a lot more freedom than we've ever experienced, and with that freedom comes serious risks. Sexual misconduct is a serious problem on many college campuses, which is why much of our discussion today will be centered around the experience of a college student on a college campus. Sexual harassment can take on many forms, some of which we may be desensitized to or unfamiliar of. So it's important to recognize what sexual harassment is, what it can look like, and how we can keep ourselves and others safe. The first step in trying to protect ourselves and the community is to understand that which we are trying to protect ourselves from. So when we have an understanding of the threat that is before us, we can then begin to dismantle it. So much of this conversation will be defining what sexual harassment is and what kinds of behaviors can be classified as such, so that we may be able to identify it better and hopefully be able to speak up if we see something wrong. So as always, when we discuss topics like sexual assault and harassment, we want to begin with a kind of disclaimer stating that this material is sensitive material. If it is difficult for you to hear, or if you want to talk afterwards, please don't hesitate to reach out to us as we can connect you with someone to talk to. I do also want to give a general warning that I may go into descriptive detail about some behaviors that are categorized as assault, harassment, and misconduct, so that we may be better suited and better equipped to identify those behaviors. But to start off, I kind of want to start off a little differently. I want us to kind of begin with some introspection. Change begins with ourselves, and in these kinds of situations, it can be easy to distance ourselves from the core issue, especially if we haven't had any personal experience with it. I want us to try thinking about this in a different way, though. As connected as we are as a community, if it happens to even a single one of us, it should inspire a spirit of wanting to change for the better. So I want us to think about our personal core values. Personal core values are what encompass our foundational beliefs, and those beliefs then dictate our behaviors and can guide us to make the decisions that we make. Our values are broad concepts that can be reapplied many times over in our lives in various situations to guide our actions. So the question arises, what does this have to do with sexual abuse? Our values are what we identify to be the most important qualities that drive our reasons to do something. So if I value honesty, it's unlikely that I will lie. If I value courage, I may try to push myself on the daily to try and speak out when something doesn't seem right. So some values that we hold as Christians are values such as compassion, love, and peace. And these examples of Christian values can serve as a reminder that as Copts, we have a kind of inherent responsibility to not only keep ourselves safe, but also to take care and watch out for the safety of those around us. As it's stated in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 24 to 26, but God composed the body, having given greater honor to that part which lacks it, that there should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have the same care for one another. And if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. Or if one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. I want us to think of the fact that our identities as Coptic Christians are inextricably linked to the way that we should care for the way our fellow human beings are treated. So then this leads us to our next question of, how do my values keep me safe? So we've established that these values are what dictate our behaviors and guide our decisions. If we're able to center values that promote behaviors that increase personal responsibility and personal awareness, we can then in turn better discern situations that may or may not put us at risk. That is not to say, though, that if, God forbid, I get harassed or assaulted, that it was my fault. While there are things that we can do to keep ourselves safe, an assault or harassment is never the victim's fault. Taking precautions in any situation is a way to be mindful of ourselves. It's like wearing a seatbelt in a car. But if someone is intoxicatingly and irresponsibly driving on the road and I get into an accident, regardless of whether I'm wearing a seatbelt or not, the actions of another person, the bad decisions made by another person, were not my fault. Ultimately, there are precautions that we can take to keep ourselves safe. But in the end, and I want to and will continue to emphasize this point, that it is not your fault if you were a victim of abuse, and it is never your fault if you are a victim of abuse. There is a lot of work that needs to be done to change the attitudes and behaviors that are frequently associated with why perpetrators do what they do. It's a long road to begin dismantling gender-based stereotypes and beliefs that perpetuate these actions. And God willing, the Agape Project is currently working on curricula that will address these underlying issues. So for now, let's refocus and get into our main goal of defining what sexual harassment, assault, and misconduct are, how they differ from one another, and how we can identify them. So sexual misconduct, to start, is a non-legal term used informally to describe a broad range of behaviors, which may or may not involve harassment. So in the case of may not, an example would be that some companies prohibit sexual relationships between coworkers or between an employee and their boss, even if the relationship is consensual. Sexual harassment, on the other hand, is another broad term, and it includes many types of unwelcome verbal and physical sexual attention. Sexual harassment includes unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature in the workplace or learning environment. And it could be in any environment, really, but so sexual harassment does not always have to be about a specific sexual behavior or directed at a specific person. For example, negative comments about women as a group may be a form of sexual harassment. Although sexual harassment laws do not usually cover teasing or offhand comments, these behaviors can also be upsetting, have a negative emotional effect, and can build on and contribute to the issues underlying sexual violence as a whole. Sexual harassment can occur in a variety of circumstances. The harasser can identify with any gender and can have any kind of relationship to the victim, including being a direct manager, indirect supervisor, a coworker, teacher, peer, or colleague. So next, I'm going to kind of just list a series of forms of sexual harassment. So some forms may include making a condition of employment or advancement in a position dependent on sexual favors, either explicitly or implicitly, physical acts of sexual assault, requests for sexual favors, verbal harassment of a sexual nature, including jokes referring to sexual acts, unwanted touching or physical contact, unwelcome sexual advances, discussing sexual relations, stories, or fantasies at work, school, or other inappropriate places, feeling pressured to engage with someone sexually, exposing oneself or performing sexual acts on oneself, and unwanted sexually explicit photos, emails, or text messages are all forms of sexual harassment. Now, sexual assault refers to sexual contact or behavior, often physical, that occurs without the consent of the victim. Sexual assault also usually refers to acts that are criminal. So some forms of sexual assault include the penetration of a victim's body, also known as rape, attempted rape, and forcing a victim to perform sexual acts such as oral sex or penetration of the perpetrator's body, and fondling or any kind of unwanted, non-consensual sexual touching. So here we have a chart that kind of lays everything out in a more visual manner. Again, we have sexual misconduct as the kind of broad, informal term that encompasses a broad range of behaviors that may or may not be harassment. In the case of this chart, we focused specifically on harassment, which can then be broken down into two types of conduct. We first have unacceptable conduct, which include behaviors such as sexualized language or jokes, visually displaying sexually explicit materials, sexual innuendos, unwanted sexual attention, pressuring for sexual activity, also known as coercion, sexist or sexually demeaning comments, sexually discriminatory conduct, online sexual misconduct, inappropriate use of social media, unsolicited sexually explicit texts, emails, images, and inappropriate work relationships. On the other side, we have criminal conduct, which includes behaviors such as sexual assault, indecent exposure, child pornography, criminal harassment such as stalking or threats, sexual exploitation, sexual interference, voyeurism, and sharing private images without consent. And so we have these two different kinds of conducts. One is criminal, one is deemed unacceptable, but they both contribute to a toxic environment. So at this time, I want to share some statistics with you just to kind of get a lay of the land of what we're dealing with here. So all statistics are derived, or all statistics that I'm showing you next are all derived from the report on the Association of American Universities, the AAU, Campus Climate Survey on Sexual Assault and Sexual Misconduct that was published in 2019 and revised in January of 2020. Over 180,000 students responded across 33 colleges and universities in the US. So sexual violence is pervasive on college campuses. The overall rate of non-consensual sexual contact by physical force or the inability to consent since the student enrolled at the school was about 13%. Among all students, about 41.8% reported experiencing at least one sexually harassing behavior since enrollment, and overall 18.9% of students reported sexually harassing behavior that either interfered with their academic or professional performance, limited their ability to participate in an academic program, or created an intimidating, hostile, or offensive social, academic, or work environment. Among undergraduate students, about 25.9% of females and 6.8% of males experience sexual contact by physical force or inability to consent. And among all students, about 5.8% reported experiencing stalking. So at this point, I want to kind of shift gears and talk about specific kinds of forms of harassment. So in this case, stalking. When you learn more about stalking behaviors, you're more likely to notice them before they escalate. And at that point, you can start taking steps to protect yourself. So if you discover that you are being stalked either in person or online via technology, it can be unsettling. So consider taking steps to protect yourself or involve an authority figure who can help you. So stalking is defined as a pattern of repeated and unwanted attention, harassment, contact, or any other course of conduct directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear. Similar to crimes of sexual violence, stalking is about power and control. Stalking behaviors can take on many forms, including making threats against someone or that person's family or friends, non-consensual communication, such as repeated phone calls, emails, text messages, and unwanted gifts, repeated physical or visual closeness, like waiting for someone to arrive at certain locations, following someone, or watching someone from a distance, and any other behavior used to contact, harass, track, or threaten someone. As technology and digital platforms continue to grow, so do the chances that someone could interact with you in an unwanted sexual manner. Not all of these behaviors are considered stalking, but they can be violating and make you feel uncomfortable, especially when utilizing technology. I'm sure people have stories about people sliding into your DMs and kind of just bugging you all the time. It's only when it gets kind of to an extreme that it can be considered stalking, but we do have some tips about what to do, some suggestions if you think you are being stalked. So first of all, if you do think that you are experiencing an instance of stalking, please know that you are right to be concerned. Stalking may escalate in behavior, and there are some tips that you can consider to increase your safety and effectively report the crime. So first is to try and avoid the person stalking you. It's kind of obvious, but it can be difficult at times, especially if the person stalking you is close to you or your family. If you are being stalked through communication technology like email or texts or any other social media, make it clear that you wish to stop contact. And once you've made it clear, do not respond to any further communication. Keep any evidence received from the stalker, such as text messages, voicemails, letters, packages, emails, etc., but do not respond. You can do this by taking screenshots of conversations or even printing out email exchanges. Inform family, friends, supervisors, and coworkers of the situation. Remember, you don't have to go through this alone. You have resources, especially through your immediate social circle and your support system. And also consider reporting the stalking to local law enforcement, and keeping an accurate journal or a log of all incidents connected to the stalking can help you build up a case should you decide that you would like to report to the courts and try and get a no contact order or a restraining order. Martina Mehta, the legal voice on our team, can speak more to this process if anyone has any additional questions at the end. The way she explained it to us the other day is that you could literally walk into a courthouse and request a no contact order, and the clerks will help you help guide you through that process. So again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to use that form that we sent through the email that we sent earlier. And we'd love to answer that for you. So next, we want to discuss the role of alcohol. So at least 50% of student sexual assaults involve alcohol. Approximately 90% of rapes perpetrated by an acquaintance of the victim also involve alcohol. And about 43% of sexual assault events involve alcohol use by the victim, while 69% involve alcohol use by the perpetrator. In 1/3 of sexual assaults, the aggressor is intoxicated. So why is this important? It's kind of just the fact of the matter that college is a place that has a glorified drinking culture. But right now, we're not here to demonize drinking, but rather we want to encourage exercising discernment. If you're of legal age and you choose to drink, consider doing so with people that you trust. And even then, consider avoiding things like drinking games, binge drinking, watching your drink and not letting, just keeping an eye on what you're drinking, being responsible and alert. It's kind of like the typical things that you get told when you go to college. It seems kind of not quite obvious, but it seems a little bit self-explanatory, but it's worth repeating over and over again. So excessive alcohol consumption among college students is a contributory factor for unintentional injury risk, fatalities, and sexual assault. What this means is that alcohol use is related to the risk for sexual assault in the same way that icy sidewalks can contribute to falls. People can fall on a dry sidewalk, but the presence of ice increases a person's susceptibility for experiencing a dangerous fall. Similarly, sexual assault can and does occur without alcohol consumption by the perpetrator or victim, but the presence of alcohol increases a person's susceptibility for experiencing an assault. But again, this is not to say that if someone was drinking, that their assault was their fault. It is never the victim's fault, and perpetrators are legally and morally responsible for their actions. So it's at this point that I want to shift slightly again and begin discussing what coercion is, as we mentioned it a few times before. So you will always have a right to complete control over how far you want to take it with a significant other. When it comes to anything physical, you absolutely have a voice and you do not have to do anything that you do not want to. If someone makes you feel obligated or forced to do something you don't want to, you may be experiencing coercion. By definition, sexual coercion is the act of using pressure, alcohol or drugs, or force to have sexual contact with someone against his or her will, and includes persistent attempts to have sexual contact with someone who has already refused. Think of sexual coercion as a kind of range, as it can vary from someone verbally pushing you to someone physically forcing you to have contact with them. It can be verbal and emotional in the form of statements that make you feel pressure, guilt, or shame. And you can also be made to feel forced through more subtle actions. For example, your partner might make you feel like you owe them. For example, they might use excuses such as we're in a relationship, because maybe you've had sex before and it's expected, because they've spent money on you or bought you a gift, or because you've gone home with them. They may give you compliments that sound extreme or insincere as an attempt to get you to agree to something. They may badger you, yell at you, or hold you down, give you drugs and alcohol to loosen up your inhibitions. They may play on the fact that you're in a relationship, saying things such as, sex is the way to prove your love for me, or if I don't get sex from you, I'll get it from somewhere else. They may react negatively with sadness, anger, or resentment if you say no or don't immediately agree to something. They may continue to pressure you if you say no, or they may make you feel threatened or afraid of what might happen if you say no. They may also try to normalize their sexual expectations, such as an example is like someone saying, I need it, I'm a guy. Some of these statements may sound silly, or you might think, oh, that doesn't sound as though that would make me do something. But we kind of have to put ourselves in the mindset of, if it's coming from someone that you may be in some sort of relationship with, they may use that kind of emotional attachment and that desire to make your partner happy to try and coerce you into something outside of your comfort zone. But please know that this is not the norm and should not be the norm, and you have the absolute right to deny that expectation. So alternately, in a relationship where sexual coercion is occurring, there's a lack of consent. So what is consent? The coercive partner doesn't respect the boundaries or wishes of the other. So let's now review what consent is. So consent is an agreement between participants to engage in sexual activity. Consent doesn't have to be verbal, but verbally agreeing to different sexual activities can help both you and your partner respect each other's boundaries. Consent is not a given. Just because you've consented to an act before does not mean you've consented to it forever. This idea also relates to new relationships. Just because you've given consent to something in a previous relationship does not make it automatic in a new relationship. Consent is not a free pass. Saying yes to one act doesn't mean you have to consent to other acts. Each require its own consent. Consent can be taken back at any time, even if you're in the middle of something. If you start feeling uncomfortable, you always have the right to stop. It's not consent if you're afraid to say no. If you're being manipulated, pressured, or threatened to say yes, it is not consent. It's also not consent if you or a partner is unable to legitimately give consent, which includes being asleep, unconscious, under the influence of conscious altering substances, or unable to understand what you are saying yes to. In a healthy relationship, giving and receiving consent is an ongoing process. Establishing boundaries by discussing what things you and your partner are comfortable with and what things you may not feel comfortable with is key. Just keeping an open line of communication is important. Be clear and direct with your partner if you don't want to do something. Don't be embarrassed to say that you don't want to get physical. Be honest and make sure that you are heard. If the other person is not listening to you, try and leave the situation. Oh, sorry. There is a little acronym that I think kind of summarizes that whole spiel that I just gave, FRIES, where it just summarizes what consent is. It's freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. So if you are on a college campus right now, you have likely heard of this term active bystander. especially within the context of like stepping in to help if you see someone who might be in danger or at risk for sexual assault. Bystander intervention can also be a helpful strategy if you witness sexual harassment, which we stated before is a broad range of behaviors that includes verbal harassment. So stepping in or calling someone out if they say something that is harmful is also a form of being an active bystander. So you don't have to be a hero to make a positive impact in someone's life, and you can intervene in a way that fits your comfort level and is appropriate for the situation. If you choose to step in, you may be able to give the person being harassed a chance to get to a safe place or leave the situation. So I have included another acronym to remember. The acronym is CARE. So these are just some steps to maybe take if you see someone being sexually harassed, but also in these situations, keep your own safety in mind at all times. So the first is create a distraction. Do what you can to interrupt the harassment or distract those taking part in the harassment. But again, remember to make sure that you aren't putting yourself in danger by doing this. Ask directly, talking directly with the person who is being harassed if they can help kind of break up the situation and clarify what's going on. If they're being harassed at work or at school, you can offer to accompany them anytime they have to meet with the harasser. If a friend is worried about walking alone to their car at night, offer to walk with them. Refer to an authority. The safest way to intervene for both you and the person being harassed may be to bring an authority figure into the situation. You can talk to another employee, a security guard, the RA in your dorm. They'll often be willing to step in. And finally, enlist others. I'm under no illusion about how hard it can be to step in alone, especially if you're worried about your own safety or you don't think that you'll be able to help on your own. So it may be a good idea to enlist the help of a friend or another bystander to interfere in the situation. So I know I'm kind of shifting through each of these topics quite quickly, but I do want to get to this final question of what do I do if someone I know is sexually assaulted? So what we should be aware of is the fact that everyone processes their experiences in different ways. If someone you know has had a traumatic experience, their reaction to the event may vary. In most cases of campus sexual assault, the victim is hurt by someone they know or trust, and they're dealing with processing complicated emotions, as well as deciding what they want to do moving forward, which can all take time. So here are some things that you could do if someone discloses an assault to you. The first things first is you can listen. If someone discloses an assault to you, it means that they trust you enough to share this incredibly difficult story. Just listening with compassion can be incredibly helpful. And sometimes people are just looking for an ear to listen and not looking for active advice. So let them lead the conversation. The second one is believe. Rather than asking a lot of questions, just let your friend know that you believe them and will support them as best as you can. You can also try and give options, as sexual assault is a crime based in power and control. In order to give a sense of control back to your friend, allow them to carefully choose what option is best. They may not make the same decision that you might make in that situation, but it's important to remember that only the victim can decide what is a healthy process for themselves to take. So you can help them explore their options by suggesting available resources such as medical resources, legal, on campus, off campus, friends, families, counselors, or any other support that you can think of. And finally, it's also important to take care of yourself, as hearing about an assault can be very difficult, particularly when the incident occurred to someone that you care about. It's important that while you are supporting a friend, you are also taking care of your own physical and mental health. So a question arises here of, what if my friend doesn't want to report? What do I do then? So it's possible that you could have a friend disclose to you that a sexual assault has occurred, but then tell you that they do not want to report the assault. Your friend may ask you to keep the conversation private, and there are a lot of reasons why someone may choose not to report that sexual violence. In most cases of campus sexual assault, the offender is known to the victim, which means that it's likely someone that they trusted, like a significant other, a friend, or a classmate. Your friend could be concerned that people won't believe them, or they themselves may not identify what occurred to them as a sexual assault. A victim may have fear of or confusion about the criminal justice system or campus judicial processes. If drugs or alcohol were involved, victims may choose not to report because they're worried that they'll get in trouble as well. As mentioned before, only the victim can decide what is best for themselves. However, your support can help address some of the fears that may impact their decision as to whether or not they're comfortable reporting. Try to remind them that no one, regardless of relationship or status within the campus community, has the right to hurt them, and that no matter what, it is not their fault that this occurred. You could tell your friend that you'll go with them to make the report if they decide to do so. And if there is a situation where you fear for a friend's safety, you may choose to discuss what is happening with a trusted adult on campus, even though your friend requested privacy. However, if your friend is safe, help them by providing all possible options and allowing them to decide what to do moving forward. So don't preoccupy yourselves with the perfection of your response. You don't have to be a trained crisis clinician, but you should be aware of the impact that your words, actions, and the relationship with the person confiding in you has on that person. Again, if someone discloses to you, it means that they trust you enough to share this information with you. So be present, listen to what is being said, and consider what you can do to support your friend. Sometimes your friend might not want to talk. Sitting in silence can be just as powerful. Just be with them and be present. Avoid asking questions like, why did you go with him? Did you fight back? Questioning your friend's behaviors could make them feel as though the victimization was their fault, even though it wasn't, and even if that isn't your intent. So focus on offering your friends support and providing options so that they can decide what is best for themselves. So to kind of just finish up, there are resources and reporting mechanisms in place that you can turn to if, God forbid, you or someone you know has experienced something that we've spoken about tonight. RAIN is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest Network, National Network, sorry. It's the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization, and they're the ones that run the National Sexual Assault Telephone Hotline. How it works is that when you call the number 800-656-4673, you'll be routed to a local RAIN affiliate organization based on the first 6 digits of your phone number. Cell phone callers have the option to enter the zip code of their current location to more accurately locate the nearest sexual assault service provider. Additionally, for those of you in Massachusetts, there is a compiled list of all rape crisis centers in Massachusetts at the mass.gov/service details/rape crisis centers website. So these rape crisis centers offer free services for adolescent and adult sexual assault survivors, and for people who care about survivors of all ages. So ultimately, if an abuse is recent, it's important to also seek out medical treatment, and a medical provider can help connect you to additional resources. So we also want to not forget about people's mental health through all these ordeals, because yes, the physical well-being is incredibly important, but also we need to address the mental well-being of survivors as well. Psychology Today has a feature where you can search for mental health counselors based on your location, and from there you can narrow it down with what qualities you are searching for in a therapist. It's a great resource, and I encourage you to look at it even if you don't have an event to talk about. To learn more about the issue of sexual assault and intimate partner violence within this age group, this demographic, The Hunting Ground is a documentary from 2015 that takes a close look at how pervasive sexual assault is on campuses. Additionally, the One Love Foundation is a foundation created to educate and advocate against domestic / intimate partner violence, and has incredible training workshops and resources about how to spot signs of unhealthy relationships and how to reach out for help. Pact 5 is another organization. It's a national collaboration by students and faculty of several US colleges that's focused on educating the public on sexual assault by raising up the voices of survivors and providing excellent resources to learn more about these issues. So I know that I covered a wide range of topics in a short amount of time, and that this was a lot of information to take in at once, but I hope that this helped at least clarify what certain terms are and what their corresponding behaviors look like. I understand that hearing about such a bleak topic can also be very scary, but I also want to encourage you to take this not as an opportunity to be frightened or disheartened, but to be invigorated and inspired to not only lift up those who have been impacted, but also take on a more active role in trying to prevent such things from happening again. It takes a lot of courage to come forward with news that any of what we talked about today has happened to you. But the main message that I hope you take away is that you're not alone and that there are resources for you to find and utilize. In the AAU survey conducted in 2019 that I mentioned earlier, it was found that one of the most common reasons for not contacting a program was that the stalking, harassment, or intimate partner violence was not quote unquote serious enough from the perspective of the person reporting. It was cited by 67.2% of those reporting sexual harassment and about 50.4% of stalking victims. But again, I want to reiterate that it is not the norm and it should not be the norm. And if at all you ever feel threatened or scared, please don't feel afraid to reach out, because there are people out there who want to help. I know that there is so much more to this conversation than what I have discussed today. I hope that this is more of an introduction. And as I stated when I started, please know that the Agape Project is dedicated to continuing this discussion, and that we are in the active process of creating material and future talks that delve into this multifaceted issue, and that this is just the beginning. And I hope that you join us as we continue to work to make our community a safer place that values each and every one of our members. So at this time, I think that we can begin to take questions if we are prepared to do so.
So Angie, we're still getting questions being sent to us right now. So we just resent the question submission form in the chat. So if everyone can just direct their attention to the chat, you will see the question submission form. I want to say thank you to Angie for doing such a phenomenal job of presenting some very tough information. So clapping for Angie. So I just want to give you guys a few reminders while we wait for people to submit some more questions. So first of all, if you joined us last week, you know that we discussed safety in terms of the servant's role against sexual abuse. I wanted to let you all know that that talk is available online. We record each and every one of our talks. So if you were not present at last week's event and you are interested in the information we shared, Mary Masiha did a phenomenal job of presenting some really, really great information that can help us keep our children safe in terms of the servant's role. So you can direct your attention to our website and you will find the link for that video. And we also have a YouTube channel. You should be able to access that from the website as well. I know that a lot of people lost power because of the storm. Thank you, Mina. Mina just sent us the website in the chat. I know that a lot of people lost power because of the storm. So there are some people who registered who were not with us tonight. Please share this link with your friends so that they can access the video for tonight's talk. And one more thing I want to mention is we have an option on our website called Share Your Ideas. It's sort of a community engagement invitation. We want to hear what you guys think. We want you to have a voice in this conversation. We want your voices amplified. So please go to our website and fill out that form and tell us what you want to see in future talks. Tell us what you're thinking about. Tell us what you're concerned about. Tell us your worries. We have worries too. We have, a lot of things we want to work on and a lot of future talks planned, but we want to make sure that your voices are heard. So please go to our website and click on Share Your Ideas, and please share your ideas. Okay. Mary and Mina, we're ready? Can we start questions?
Mute. Okay. Sorry, we're sitting next to each other. You can see the same background behind us. So I'll be asking the questions since I won't be answering any of them. And since Mary has some expertise in actually answering some of the questions, I'll focus on the asking of them and she'll say, yeah, that's actually a good question. So I'll actually combine the first two questions that we have. So hopefully we can get some more of these. And the first two, one is how can we seek help for long-term programs when you don't know who to reach out to? Another one relates to resources where the person asks, you said if helping a friend through their own experience starts having a negative impact on you, you should step back for the sake of your own mental health and everything. But how do you do that? How do you tell a friend that you can't be there for them through something that's also having such a negative impact on them as well? So I guess both questions kind of relate to man, I don't know what to do. Where do I go for help so that I can make sure that I'm getting the right resources for myself? Or if it's somebody else that's struggling, how do I help them through it when I don't necessarily know myself what to do, which actually applies to me, myself. So I'm here to learn the answer to that question with you guys.
So I'm happy to try and answer some of it, and then we're answering as a team, so the team can kind of jump in. The question was I want to answer the question of, how can I, if you're supporting a friend and it's affecting you so much and you need to step back. So I think what Angie was saying and what I think is that, so when you're supporting your friend going through anything, the most important thing, and I'm a big proponent of this, is self-care. So you can still be there for your friend while caring for yourself. And if you need to step back a little bit, it doesn't mean that you are abandoning your friend in their time of need. It just means that you are caring for yourself so that you can care for them. So if you feel like what they're saying to you is overwhelming, and you have your own therapist, and that's a confidential relationship, you can talk to somebody in confidence, you can go for a run, you can listen to music, you can do all sorts of, self-care things to help yourself so that you can be there for your friend. So it's not to say that, my friend's going through a tough time and it's affecting me, so I can't help them. You can still help them while caring for yourself. So that I can answer. Maybe if someone could, I don't know if I fully understand long-term programs that question was asking. So if someone else wants to take that one, or if you want Mina to repeat the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I clearly understand that question.
Mina, can you read it again, please? Just in a concise way. Without adding the 4 cents that you added. Mina? I hope he's not مزعلش.
No, sorry, what's the question?
There is something with the sound عندك. The sounds is like back and forth. So the question, I heard the second half of it.
So the question is, good. How can we seek help for long-term programs when we don't know who to reach out to? That was the other question. That was the other half of the question.
Okay. When you talk about long-term help, I think I'm assuming the person is talking about psychological help, because the therapeutic relationship is something that it's not a 1 or 2 time or 3 sessions. It's something that can last for a year. Again, it depends on how traumatic is the event. But finding the right clinician, the right therapist is really key to help. But what comes with it, which is the other part of the question, how can I help my friend? Sometimes you cannot do it all, because sometimes we can be the supporter, we can be the therapist, we can be the, the comforting heart that they come to all the time. They have access 24/7, and sometimes that's not realistic. Sometimes helping them access psychological help by asking maybe some of the clinicians. We have amazing clinicians in our churches. They're all licensed and they're really trustworthy. You can also finding them spiritual support. It's not all psychological care. There's also spiritual care that can also be a healing thing during a time like this. And social/family support as well. Sometimes the support that a family can provide, you cannot replace it. And I know sometimes it's really hard, but if you're a victim, if there is something that happens to you, your family probably the most gated party that you can have, plus your friends and the psychological care. Mary said that self-care is really important. So we have to know what we can and cannot do as friends. Boundaries clear by how much we can offer. And again, sometimes accessing help for them or helping them access the help can be very, very helpful, because it's not all on you. I'm not sure if I answered that. I know Anne and we have a few of the clinicians and abunas. I'm sure we've dealt with situations like this in the past. So please, those are my thoughts.
I think you said it perfectly, Abuna.
Mina, can you read the next question, please?
Okay, sorry, we're kind of going through questions as we're talking. So I am going to paraphrase the next question. The question one was kind of talking about stating, don't our youth know about these things? Like, don't our youth understand these concepts? I thought, like basically saying, I have faith in our youth that we understand the concepts that were discussed. And I think even Angie can probably answer this question, is that this talk, it may, for me, at least for me, like, and maybe for some of us, because we're all here attending this talk, which means that like, we care about the subject, which means that we have maybe some background. I'm assuming, maybe not, but I think that we all are here because we care about this and we want to know more, and we want to spread good information and teach people good information. Not everybody knows that, and it's not just our community. It's college and the graduate age people, adults at large. They don't know this. This is a problem. I mean, if you look at the statistics that Angie shared, it is a significant problem on college campuses, sexual assault and sexual harassment. So our youth are wonderful, and so many of them that are here are wonderful, but it's definitely a topic that needs to be talked about, Angie, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think my main kind of goal for this talk was to at least lay a kind of foundation for us to kind of build upon for our subsequent talks. I can understand how this may appear to be kind of basic knowledge, but at the root of it, if we can't identify the basics of these issues, then we can't then begin to address those issues. So being able to identify what sexual harassment is versus what sexual assault is, and how each of those issues may need to be dealt with in a different way. Those are important things to know when discussing just this issue at large. And yeah, I kind of came at it from the perspective of, okay, we're starting at a kind of ground zero, let's build our way up. And as I said before, this is a multifaceted issue, and there's so much to discuss surrounding it, and there's no way we could fit all of that into a single night, which is why we are currently working to create a series and to continue the conversation. So yeah, I just this is just the beginning is all I would have to say to that.
And for the person who asked that question, again, we want to echo the incompleteness of anything that we're going to do, and our desire to find a solution that both honors the challenges that we're all facing, while at the same time finds a positive voice for how our community is going to address all of the ongoing issues. We encourage you to read our latest blog entry about a false A and B choice, that we either do this or we do this, and falling into a trap where we're going to be locked into a certain kind of mindset. So again, Angie's addressing one facet of this and creating an environment and a safe space where we can start approaching some of these issues and talking about them openly on several levels. And we're so grateful for Abuna Sam and Abuna Mark and the other clergy that are present with us. I think I saw Abuna Carlos is here. We've had a really incredible support from the clergy, and I think with everyone working together as an entire community, that's how we're going to be able to bring some issues to the surface and be able to start to addressing them in a meaningful way, in a positive way. So we're obviously open to any suggestions, and we encourage you to fill out the engagement form, to share your ideas. And there's not going to be a single cookie cutter, one out of the box solution for any of this. So starting the conversation, continuing dialogue, being at peace and in harmony with each other as we bring conversations to the forefront, that's going to be something that we're going to prioritize. So hopefully that's acceptable. Hopefully that's something that you appreciate. If so, we're so appreciative for the support. If not, we welcome your constructive comments anytime.
Thank you, Mina. Well said.
If there are any other questions, please submit them. Do we have any more questions, Mina and Mary?
So I think, well, so the next one's a touchy question, but I think what we're able to answer, and I'll direct this to the clergy. What has the church set up to help in these kinds of situations? And again, this is like an ongoing question that's evolving as we speak. What kind of training is being set up for the clergy? And I think that the question's really directed at the Agape Project. What are we doing to help that? And I don't think we've done anything yet, but perhaps the clergy can address, what's already ongoing and what's already in the pipeline in terms of the trainings that are planned around this topic for the clergy, for the diocese. It might be a little premature to talk about this since it hasn't happened yet, but I think maybe addressing this question as to what is planned and what's down the road, because that's a question that came up.
Abuna Samuel, you wanna?
Abuna Mark, you wanna take it?
As Mina, I mean, my so I don't know if the question, Mina, maybe help me clarify that. The question, what is the church is doing about this as a global issue in the church that now is on the surface, or in terms of us as clergymen amongst us in that local church, what do we do in situation like this? Like if someone were to be victimized or something happens to someone, what do we do as clergy? So it can be
I think it's
the global, micro or macro.
I
So
think it's both, and I think that you know, we as the Agape Project, as we individual members, we've been in close touch with you guys, so we hear about all of the inner workings. We just met on Monday earlier this week, and we got a full update of, you know, here's the trainings that are going to happen, and here's the committees that are going to be formed, and here's the reporting mechanism, and this is how it's going to be reported. But I think one of the things that I think would be helpful to a lot of people on the call, including the person that asked this question, is for that to be clarified a little bit. So I think there's an assumption that's made that it's not happening or that it's not going to happen. And they're asking kind of, what's the Agape Project going to do to make this happen? And we're kind of grateful that we're in the position where we know that these things are in the works. And you know, I think when something like this happens, like there's a lot of urgency and there's a lot of, you know, like how quickly can we make this go away? And, you know, I think we are all appreciative for the support from the clergy that, you know, this Agape Project didn't exist, you know, in June. And over the course of just several months, you know, we went from 0 to, you know, this isn't even 60. This is like 0 to 100, like very, very quickly. But the diocese has also been working at the same time. So just clarifying, you know, like we as the Agape Project aren't necessarily pushing or demanding or doing any of these things. A lot of these things were already being done by the diocese, and sort of clarifying what some of these things are, both in terms of the micro, in terms of how a reporting mechanism is going to be set up, and in terms of the macro, in terms of how we're training not just the priests, but all of the servants and all of the people in our community. So both.
Abulmar, can I just comment before you answer?
yes, Ibuna Tfaddal.
All right. Thank you, Mina, and thank you for the question. I think I just want to make sure we're all clear. First and foremost, if anyone is aware of something, please report it to your local authorities. That's first and foremost. So if you have knowledge, you or a friend or something, especially anything dealing that is reportable, please report it. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. When you do report, you are going to deal with professionals on the other line. They know what they're doing. They know what questions to ask, and they'll help you to get through whatever it is that you're calling about. So I want to make sure it's very, very clear to everyone, especially at the college campus level. I know we discussed it on Monday. Angie, I don't know if I heard you say it or not, but if someone does find themselves being, especially in a rape situation or being sexually assaulted, I think we agreed that the best thing is to go to your local hospital. Is that what we said? Is that the advice? Yeah. So if someone does end up, God forbid, but it does happen, please go see help. Go to your local hospital. Go to the ER. They have professionals. They know what they're doing, and they're going to help you. That's like sort of the step one. The diocese, at least here in New York, New England, we're very thankful. We do have, we've always had a sexual harassment policy, or I think it's called a sexual misconduct policy, but definitely in light of everything that's been happening, the policy has been revised, updated. As of now, we have something called integrity counts. If you go to the website, even right from the first line, it says, in case of emergency, please contact your local authorities. Like, don't even bother with the report. Right from the first line, when you go to the website, please contact your local authorities. But if you continue to fill out the report, we are still in a training process. So this is something that the clergy do have training coming up. There will be lay professionals. You'll see it on the website of Integrity Counts that there will be a committee of lay professionals that will do the internal investigation, professionals who are licensed in the mental health, social workers, the ones who are fully equipped and knowledgeable with how to run a proper investigation when it comes to investigating sexual assault of any form. So we're still in that process of, we set up the sort of the structure of what is to happen. And now we are starting to fill in the training sessions. Clergy will be trained. There'll be groups from different regions of the diocese that will be formed with the lay professionals, and you'll see that all written out if you go to the Integrity Count's website. Even if you kind of pretend to fill out the form, right through it, it'll start telling you, here's what the plan, here's what's going to happen. So thankfully, we do have that structure, and thankfully we are working to make sure we get the proper training. I don't want to comment too much just because I don't know all the details yet, but I know that there's even talk about the training that we're going to receive will be from an outside company that is a professional in dealing with this stuff. This is not something new to companies. Sexual harassment training is something that is in almost every company that you work for. So there are definitely a lot of companies that, agencies that are hired to do the sexual harassment training at different companies. So I know the diocese is looking into doing that for the clergy. But we're still in that stepping stone, as Mina kind of explained. We're still getting to that process. So I hope that helped answer the question.
Thank you, Abuna.
Thank you.
I want to add something, if that's okay. You guys are asking some really great questions, and although the Agape Project is not directly connected with creating those policies, if you have any ideas that you would like us to pass along, because we have two very wonderful and supporting fathers in our group, we have a direct connection to people who can pass things along higher up, and they're incredibly loving and supportive, and they've been with us every step of the way. So know that anything that you share on our website, they will also see. So your voice is really important. We want to amplify your voices, and although we don't have the direct power to, you know, create those policies or change those policies, we work to educate. We still want to hear you, and we will pass that information along to people who will be able to make those policies. And again, like I said, Abuna Mark and Abuna Samuel have been wonderful in amplifying our voices even. So just know that, okay? That's what that share ideas form on the website is for, okay? Abuna Mark, is there anything you wanted to add to anything Abuna Samuel said? Abuna, you're on mute.
I'm sorry.
It's
No,
okay.
just I wanted to assure you on the micro level, with the resources we have in our church, and with whatever power and resources God had given me, when we face situations like this, we take it very serving that we have the background. I've been in the field, so if something, and maybe small things here and there, comes across the way to my attention, and I either address it and try to help both psychologically and spiritually. If I feel like I don't have the time commitment nor the ability to provide the help, or it's larger than what I can offer, I always try to find the right resource for the person. So regardless of the recent news on this has been the case since me entering the service, and Abuna Samuel and I and the fathers, we had different encounters with similar situation, and we try to do the best we can with the resources we have.
Abuna, can I just add, and again, I know this is mostly a Massachusetts group, and I think everyone here knows all the local fathers, but I do want to make a comment to anyone who's outside sort of the Massachusetts group. Use the resources in your churches. I'm sure there are a lot of social workers in your churches. There's a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists in your church. There's a lot of mental health professionals in your church. So please, reach out to those people in your church. This is all, the group that we have here are just local servants in the church that are passionate. They do this for a living, and they want to bring their knowledge and their expertise into the church. So I just want to say, obviously the ones who are from Massachusetts, we know all the fathers. Everyone pretty much knows all the fathers of the area and how supportive all the fathers are. and knowing the people that we can go to. But I'm really talking to the people outside this Massachusetts area to encourage your church, your local church, to use the resources that you probably already have in your own church. Thank you.
Thank you, Muna.
If I could just add one thing, just a global comment about this issue in general, sexual abuse, sexual harassment. The best way to protect people and children is education. Like I've studied this, I attend trainings and talks all the time. The best thing is education. So yes, like Maggie said, like we don't have the higher up ability to change things higher up, but the best way to make change is education, and it takes a village. So the more people know, the stronger we are, the safer our youth will be, the safer our children will be. It's almost like an armor, like arm ourselves with all this information, all this education. It can't just be one or two people that make the change. It can't just be, I mean, the Abunas are wonderful, but it can't all be on their shoulders. Like we all need to work together to make this change. So I'm very proud of our group, and like I thank God, because education really truly is the key to making this change, honestly. So
Mina, are there any other questions that we should address?
And every time you receive
So
notification, you're a member of this group.
that were submitted are really comments and feedback that I think we absolutely 100% need to hear and 100% need to pass along. I think that, as we've said before, some of these things are touching on issues that are outside of the scope of the Agape Project, which again, we're focusing on collaboration, communication, education, compassion, empathy, working together towards, sort of positive changes that we can make in our community, improving dialogue, and some of these things fall outside of the scope of the Agape Project. So if you asked one of these questions or made one of these comments, by all means, like 100%, like they will be passed along, and the fathers that are present will pass them along. But they're just, again, they're outside of the scope of what the Agape Project is and what the Agape Project does. So we'll table them for now. Any of us, so if you know any of the members of the Agape Project, Angie, Maggie, Ann, Heba, Sarah, Abuna Sam, Tina, Mary, Abuna Mark, Martina, myself, anyone else that's here or anyone else that's on the website, you can click on the About section. Any one of us that you know, feel free to reach out. I'll, encourage you to go to the website and send us an email if you don't know any of us. Fill out the Share Your Ideas form. In addition to the questions, comments that you made, because again, like the goal isn't to say, well, we're done here, like we gave the talk and we're moving on. No, this is just the beginning of a conversation, and this is the beginning of an ongoing relationship that engages the youth and engages our entire community on, bringing some of these issues to light. So please, I hope you understand the sensitive situation and the challenges that we're all facing, trying to, figure out what the right balance is. So we hear you, we understand you, we want to listen more to you, and we hope that you reach out and you engage us. And again, the resources that we have, including, the blog posts and things like that, will hopefully be helpful to clarify kind of where we stand on these issues.
Thank you, Mina. With that, I will invite Abuna to pray for us. And just one quick reminder, our next talk will not be next Wednesday. Our next talk will be the following Wednesday on October 21st. It will be for parents of younger children, but I also encourage future parents as well as servants of younger children to attend, and also just servants in general. All of it is very helpful information. And we did receive one question this week that I want to clarify. Although all of these talks are about safety, we're not saying the same information in 4 or 5 different ways. We're actually saying different aspects of this information. So if you attended the talk today, don't think that we're going to give the exact same information next time. We are giving different information during every single event. So please attend every single one of our talks if you are very passionate about this. And I know that if you're here, you must be passionate about this. So we want to thank you all for attending, and we will be emailing you an exit survey for feedback. Please fill it out and let us know what we can do better next time. And with that, I'll ask Abuna to please pray for us.
Mark, go ahead.
Would one of the fathers be able? Abuna, can you unmute any of Abuna's with us? If not, I'll take the blessing.
Abuna Carlos.
Okay.
I think I see him. Abuna Carlos.
Sorry, everyone.
Hi, Abuna Kabedek. How are you?
Abuna, how are you?
Abuna, would you mind closing us in prayer?
Sure, Abuna, absolve me, my fathers.
Good observation.
The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Heavenly God, we thank you. We thank you for the opportunity that you are allowing us, O Lord, that we glorify your holy name and to serve you. Serve those broken ones and to be educated, because with education, we learn more and we are more equipped to be able to face kind of tragedies and to be able to understand and to deal and to close any wound, O Lord, that is open. Allow us and give us the understanding and the heart and the mind to be able to understand all these type of things, O Lord. Have mercy on your creation, have mercy on your church. Bless my fathers who are on this call, O Lord, and they labor in putting this together, and all the servants, O Lord, that are putting tremendous time and effort in doing all of this. Bless all our youth, all our families, all our kids. They could protect them with your mighty hand. They always can be sheltered and protected. Bless all the kids in the whole world, O Lord, and protect them from such an awful things, O Lord, that they might be able to face. Through the intercession of Saint Mary, Archangel Michael, Saint Mark, all your saints who are pleased at the beginning, hear us when we say all together, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. On earth as in heaven, give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those trespass against us. Lead us not temptation, but deliver us from Christ Jesus our Lord. For thine the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Abuna.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Night.